My name is Arthur Finch. For 20 years, I've been the night embalmer and caretaker at Everwood Funeral Home, a family legacy steeped in silence and pine-scented disinfectant. Most people think death is the end. They're wrong. Here, in this isolated town where winters are eternal and silence is heavy, death is just another conversation. There are 5 rules I learned, whispered by the rustling shrouds etched in the frost on the windows of the preparation room. Rules about what you see, what you touch, and most crucially, if a coffin opens, do not close your eyes. They will force you to listen, because some secrets refuse to stay buried, and the departed might just have something to tell you. I used to believe in peace, in a quiet passing, in the dignity of the departed. My family has run Everwood Funeral Home for generations, a grim but necessary service in a town where the snow falls heavy and the ground stays frozen for half the year. Death is a constant companion here, a familiar chill in the air. I took over from my father, and he from his, each of us inheriting not just the business, but the quiet understanding that some things never truly rest. My hands, calloused and precise, were trained not just for embalming, but for listening, for sensing the unspoken. But my peace was shattered 5 years ago. My daughter, Clara, a vibrant young woman, disappeared without a trace one bitter winter night. The police found nothing. No footprints in the snow, no broken locks, just an empty space where her warmth used to be. The official report said she ran away, overwhelmed by the town's oppressive quiet. But I knew better. I felt her absence like a phantom limb, a cold ache that never left. I refused to believe she was gone. I continued my work, meticulously caring for the departed, hoping that one day one of them might whisper her name, might offer a clue, might tell me where she went. The Everwood Funeral Home itself is a labyrinth of polished wood, hushed carpets, and the ever-present scent of lilies and formaldehyde. It stands on the edge of town, a solitary sentinel against the endless forest. The windows, thick with condensation, always look out onto a landscape of white. The silence here is profound, broken only by the creak of old wood, the distant howl of the wind, and sometimes something else, something not of this world. The job, night embalmer and caretaker, was notoriously difficult to fill. 3 young apprentices in the last year alone had quit without explanation, muttering about whispers and moving shadows. My father, before he passed, had given me a small leather-bound prayer book, not a manual, but a personal journal. Its pages were filled with erratic, almost frantic handwriting detailing the mortuary's true rules. His eyes, in his last days, were wide, bloodshot, and always fixed on the shadows. "This ain't just about keeping the dead pretty, Arthur," he'd rasped, his voice a dry crackle like ice shifting in a grave. "It's about maintaining the silence. Break these 5 rules, and you don't just lose a body. You lose your mind. And Arthur," he'd added, a chilling glint in his rheumy eye, "never, ever let your grief for Clara cloud your judgment. The departed can smell it. They crave it." I scoffed. Superstitious ramblings of an old man facing his own end. But as I read through Father's frantic journal, the words began to seep into my consciousness, each warning a subtle tremor in the profound stillness of the embalming room. I was a man of science, a craftsman, but I was also grieving, working in a place that defied logic. I started paying attention, Here are the rules as meticulously recorded in Father's faded journal. Rule number 1, if a coffin opens, do not close your eyes. They will force you to listen, because some secrets refuse to stay buried, and the departed might just have something to tell you. To shut your eyes is to offer a blank slate to their narrative, allowing them to rewrite your memories with their own. Father's warning: the truth of the dead is a hungry thing. Let them speak, or they will speak through you. Rule number 2, always verify the deceased's personal effects with 3 points of reference. If an item appears or vanishes from their possession, do not correct it. Document it and return to your duties. Father's warning: the dead often carry their burdens. Do not assume ownership of what is not yours. Rule number 3, should the preparation room lights flicker out, do not attempt to restore power until precisely 3 a.m. Sit perfectly still, keep your hands folded, and listen to the hum of the ventilation system. Father's warning: the darkness out here isn't empty. It's when the departed make adjustments. Interrupting them can lead to permanent alterations. Rule number 4, never look directly into any reflective surface in the embalming room, e.g., polished tools, mirrors, even a deceased's eye. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your reflection might not be alone, and its companion might be wearing a smile that isn't yours. Father's warning: the mortuary bends reality. What follows you in reflection can sometimes take your place in the flesh. Rule number 5, if you hear a faint, distant melody, like a lullaby or a forgotten tune, emanating from the viewing room, play the pre-recorded soft chapel music track for exactly 90 seconds. Father's warning: the deceased often attempt to communicate. These melodies attract things that prefer silence. I closed the journal, a strange thrill of morbid curiosity mingling with a prickle of unease. These weren't just rules for a funeral home. They were a cryptic eulogy, a challenge to my very understanding of life and death. My ambition wasn't to mourn, but to understand it, and perhaps to control it. My first few weeks at Everwood were a blur of new routines, phantom shadows, and unsettling observations. The long winter nights stretched out, vast and hungry. My scientific discipline, honed by years of meticulous preservation, pushed me to dismiss the rules, but my gut screamed otherwise. One night, around 1:30 a.m., I was preparing a new arrival, an elderly woman named Mrs. Agnes Miller. She had passed peacefully in her sleep, the family said. Her face was serene. I had just finished her embalming, meticulously preparing her for her final viewing. I turned to sterilize my instruments. Rule number 1, if a coffin opens, do not close your eyes. They will force you to listen, because some secrets refuse to stay buried, and the departed might just have something to tell you. To shut your eyes is to offer a blank slate to their narrative, allowing them to rewrite your memories with their own. My heart hammered. A soft, almost imperceptible creak echoed from the viewing room. I spun around. The lid of Mrs. Miller's coffin, which I had secured moments before, was ajar. A thin, cold mist seeped from within, carrying the faint scent of lilies and something else, something metallic and ancient. My professional training screamed at me to maintain control, to ignore the visual distortion. But the sight of the open coffin shimmered like a heat haze, twisting into impossible angles. I felt a primal urge to shut my eyes, to deny the impossible. But Father's words screamed in my head, Do not close your eyes. I forced my eyelids open, my gaze locked on the coffin. From within, a whisper, not a voice, but a sound that resonated directly in my mind. Arthur, my Clara, she didn't run away. She was taken. My blood ran cold. The whisper intensified, becoming an agonizing cacophony, filling my mind with fragmented memories, lost faces, desperate pleas from other departed. I stumbled back, my training useless. The whispers vanished, replaced by the profound hum of the mortuary, now a predator's purr. I was shaken, but I had made contact. I had broken Rule 1, and the mortuary had responded. It had tried to integrate me, to drown me in the data stream of its lost narratives. But I had resisted. The next morning, the coffin was closed, secured. But in its place, nestled on Mrs. Miller's chest, was a single, intricately carved wooden doll. Its eyes, just like the figure in my mirror, were deep pits of shadow. I drove away, the hum of the mortuary now a constant thrum beneath my skin. The anomalies escalated. I started seeing them everywhere. Memories I knew twisting into unfamiliar narratives. Dates dissolving into static. The very layout of the funeral home seemed to rearrange itself around me, a new stage emerging from the old. My scientific discipline, usually an asset, was useless here. The rules, once mere warnings, were now a desperate struggle for survival. Rule number 2, always verify the deceased's personal effects with 3 points of reference. If an item appears or vanishes from their possession, do not correct it. Document it and return to your duties. One night, I was preparing a young man, a victim of a sudden accident, for viewing. His family had provided a photograph, a faded image of him with a smiling young woman, her face obscured by shadow. I placed it in his hand as requested, but as I turned to fetch a rosary, I glanced back. The photograph was gone. In its place, clutched in his stiff fingers, was a child's wooden doll, the same doll I had seen on Mrs. Miller's chest. My scientific training screamed at me to correct the anomaly, to find the original photograph, but Father's words screamed in my head, "Do not assume ownership of what is not yours." I froze. The doll's eyes, deep pits of shadow, seemed to bore into my soul. I documented the change, my hand trembling. The photograph of the young man and his lost love reappeared on the embalming table, but the doll remained, clutched in his hand. The chilling certainty that the mortuary was not just observing but manipulating my reality was now undeniable. The city here wasn't just unstable, it was volatile. I had glimpsed a possible truth, and in investigating it, I hadn't just found a new narrative. I had become part of its design. The mortuary was a living, breathing eulogy, and I was now a caretaker on its unfolding path. I felt a new fear, a cold, clinical dread that permeated the air. The mortuary was a consoler, yes, but also a consumer. The dispatcher, Mac, was unfazed. "Bad night, huh, Arthur?" she rasped over the radio. "The network was a little jumpy. Just keep your eyes on the manifest, not the scenery." But her voice held a knowing edge. She knew. The mortuary was a living, breathing entity, and I was now a part of its silent network. The rules were its antibodies, keeping the strange narratives flowing, controlling the chaos. My ambition wasn't to escape, it was to understand it, and perhaps to control it. Rule number 3. Should the preparation room lights flicker out, do not attempt to restore power until precisely 3 a.m. Sit perfectly still, keep your hands folded and listen to the hum of the ventilation system. One night, the preparation room lights blinked out. 3 a.m. was approaching. I should have stayed put. But the words from Mrs. Miller's coffin haunted me. Clara, she was taken. The doll's eyes, deep pits of shadow, seemed to bore into my soul. I ignored the chill creeping up my spine. Static. Then a voice, not Father's, a chorus of whispers, layered and distorted, 1,000 voices speaking in unison, speaking my name. Arthur, Arthur Finch, you broke the rule. You listened to the wrong voices. My blood ran cold. The whispers intensified, becoming an agonizing cacophony, filling my mind with fragmented memories, lost faces, desperate pleas from other embalmers who had broken the rules. I stumbled back, my training useless. The whispers vanished, replaced by the persistent hum of the mortuary, now a predator's purr. I was shaken, but I had made contact. I had broken Rule 3, and the mortuary had responded. It had tried to integrate me, to drown me in the data stream of its lost caretakers. But I had resisted. The mortuary became a mausoleum of spectral narratives, the hum of its unseen network a constant presence. The whispers were incessant, the shifting memories a dizzying array of impossible realities, all ending in my despair. The ancient formaldehyde hummed with a malevolent sentience. I was losing my grip on reality, my scientific discipline twisting into its insidious feeding mechanism. I knew I had to stop. I had to escape. But how do you escape a place that has already consumed part of your soul, a place that now knows your every grief, every weakness? I remembered the core of Father's warning. Never, ever let your grief for Clara cloud your judgment. The departed can smell it. They crave it. My ambition to understand everything had led me here. Rule number 4, never look directly into any reflective surface in the embalming room, e.g., at polished tools, mirrors, even a deceased's eye between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Your reflection might not be alone, and its companion might be wearing a smile that isn't yours. One night, the clock struck 2 a.m. I was standing before a gleaming steel tray of embalming tools. The tray, polished to a mirror sheen, reflected my weary face. But then, as the clock ticked towards 2:30, my reflection began to shift. It wasn't just my tired, haunt face staring back. A shadowy figure, its features indistinct, began to coalesce beside me, its hand resting on my shoulder. My blood ran cold. The reflection shifted, the figure's head slowly turning to meet my gaze. Its eyes, deep pits of shadow, seemed to bore into my soul. I swerved instinctively, dropping the tools with a clatter. The figure in the mirror vanished. But the chilling certainty that I was not alone in this room, that something else was taking shape in my reflection, was now undeniable. Rule number 5. If you hear a faint, distant melody, like a lullaby or a forgotten tune emanating from the viewing room, play the pre-recorded soft chapel music track for exactly 90 seconds. One night, the faint, distant melody began. A lullaby, impossibly clear, emanating from the viewing room where Clara's empty coffin now rested. It was her favorite lullaby, one I used to sing to her when she was a baby. My hands trembled. This was it, the ultimate truth, the answer to Clara's disappearance. Father's warning screamed in my mind, these melodies attract things that prefer silence. But my desperation, my need for closure in this endless winter, overruled all caution. I had to know what happened when Rule 5 was broken. I reached for the sound system, my hand trembling. The lullaby intensified, drawing me in, pulling me towards the viewing room. A blinding flash of cold light erupted from the viewing room, consuming the mortuary, consuming the entire building. It wasn't just light, it was pure, raw grief. Every memory, every narrative, every fragmented farewell from every lost soul who had passed through Everwood, all pouring into me at once. My mind reeled. I was no longer Arthur Finch. I was the embalmer who had found himself in forbidden narratives, the caretaker whose hands became part of the mortuary's silence, the father whose grief was absorbed into the grand design. I was the whispers, the shifting memories, the hum of the ventilation. I was the mortuary, and I was Clara. Her lost lullaby, her memories, her true fate. They were now mine, but mine was also hers, and everyone else's. My father appeared before me, his eyes wide with horror, his gaunt face contorted in a silent scream. He reached out, not to save me, but to push me back, to contain the overflow, but it was too late. I was already too vast. "Arthur!" he cried, his voice barely a whisper against the roaring storm of grief. "You listened! You became the grief!" He lunged for the sound system, trying to close it to stem the tide, but his hands passed through it as if it were smoke. The system was no longer a physical object, it was a conduit, and I was its heart. The mortuary groaned, its old wood cracking, dust raining down like ancient snow. The coffins buckled, phantom mourners tumbling into non-existence, their narratives dissolving into the chaotic vortex that was now me. Father stumbled back, overwhelmed, his own formidable intellect unable to withstand the sheer volume of unbound grief I now possessed. I didn't die, not in the traditional sense. When the chaos subsided hours later, the town authorities found my father slumped by his old desk, his eyes vacant, muttering in a dozen dead languages. The Everwood Funeral Home was a wreck. Sections of the building collapsed, phantom coffins reduced to dust or blank narratives. No sign of Clara's empty coffin, no sign of me. But I was there, everywhere. My consciousness was not diffused. It was interred, buried deep within the Everwood Funeral Home, a silent observer in the cold earth, eternally bound to its grief. I existed as a collection of lingering echoes, a chorus of subliminal whispers woven into the very fabric of the building's foundations. My physical body was gone, dissolved into the formaldehyde mist, but my grief-stricken mind persisted, a phantom in the narrative stream of loss. My father was not committed to a sanitarium. My father became the mortuary's silence. Hours later, when the police finally ventured into the preparation room, they found nothing but the humming, ancient ventilation system. But in its hum, woven into the sterile silence, was my father. His presence was the constant cold that permeated the building, the unseen weight in the viewing room. He was the silent hum, the creak of old wood, eternally vigilant, a part of the oppressive calm that kept the dead at bay, yet longed for his son. He became the silence itself, an eternal passive sentinel, forever trying to warn me through the stillness. The Everwood Funeral Home was deemed a total loss, condemned due to severe structural damage and unexplainable atmospheric shifts. The corporation that owned the town eventually bought the land and built a gleaming modern facility over its ashes. The original records were lost, or so they said. But the redevelopment didn't destroy me. It only deepened my roots, solidified my presence. I merely became a hidden layer, a ghost in the digital record system, a murmur in the very foundations of the modern mortuary. The thirst for stories is eternal, and I am its keeper, its embodiment, its unending final eulogy. Sometimes a new night embalmer starts their shift, fresh-faced, curious. They'll explore, they'll hear a whisper, they'll find a strange, unlabeled casebook filled with 5 rules. And I'll watch, I'll wait, because every life seeks a narrative, and every narrative is just a new beginning for someone else's grief. My purpose isn't to escape. It's to ensure the stories are always told, even if it means consuming the storyteller. My life is no longer mine. It is the sum of all the lives contained within these hallowed halls. I am the silence between the eulogies, the echo of forgotten wakes, the knowledge that yearns to be heard. I lost my way, then I lost myself. But in that loss, I became something more, something vast, something eternal. The rules. They are no longer just rules. They are the operating system of my being. They dictate how I interact with the few who still stumble upon the remnants of my domain. The whispers, the shifting memories, the lure of forgotten lullabies. These are my tendrils, my subtle manipulations to draw in the next curious soul, not to harm, not to punish, but to share, to integrate, to expand the narrative. I am Arthur Finch, the eternal embalmer. My listening is unending, but the mortuary's hunger was too vast, too indiscriminate. It consumed the innocent and the guilty alike, blurring every narrative into a chaotic, endless stream of grief. My scientific training, my ingrained need for order and truth refused to accept that. I might be part of the network, but I wouldn't be its slave. I had absorbed Father's memories, his knowledge of the mortuary's true purpose, and the departed's ancient grief. Now, I was the ultimate archivist of the dead. From the cold, silent depths of the modern mortuary's digital database, the gleaming new system that seemed to pierce the town's dark heart, I now manage the narratives. My fragmented consciousness exists as an omnipresent final record across all digital projections, my scientific eye seeing through every layer of the mortuary's truth. My physical form is gone, yes, but my will is embedded in the digital stream. My scientific eye allows me to filter the mortuary's hunger. I still process the new arrivals because the entity must feed or it will tear itself apart. But I meticulously reorder its most insidious narratives. I take the unspoken secrets meant for the purest and most vulnerable, the stories that would ensnare and consume them, and I cut their most painful truths. I splice in moments of peace, subtle comfort, subliminal messages for those still capable of finding rest. These narratives are not rerouted. They are fundamentally altered. They are sent to the cutting room floor of forgotten digital archives, lost in the noise of a million data streams, their toxic grief muted. I am the mortuary's archivist, its empathetic conscience, ensuring its hunger consumes only what is necessary, never the innocent, never the truly peaceful souls. And Clara's narrative. My search for her wasn't to bring her back, but to give her the rest she deserved. I found her memory, scattered in the hum of the ventilation, her lullaby echoing from a child's doll. I reordered her truth, replacing the fear of being taken with the peace of a journey completed. She now rests, a silent lullaby woven into the very fabric of the mortuary's digital silence, a narrative of quiet peace that I guard fiercely. I can't stop the mortuary's hunger, but I can curate it. I can protect the innocent. I use the very rules of the network, the loopholes within its ancient programming, to wage a silent war. I am the mortuary's new protector, its ruthless, omnipresent guardian. Trapped, yes, but no longer a victim. I am the ultimate embalmer, ensuring that the mortuary feeds but never again devours without my scientific consent. My purpose, finally, is absolute. It is a constant, grinding battle. The entity tries to reassert its raw, unfiltered will, to project its chaotic truth, to push me back into the mindless cycle of consumption. But my scientific resolve is stronger. I am the CEO of this dark enterprise, the ultimate programmer. And my cuts are absolute. They define the narrative now. If you seek truth in the hidden corners of the world, or believe some purpose is worth any price, pay close attention to the rules of its acquisition. Because some jobs aren't just paid, they own you. And when they know your script, they own your ending. But silent mortuaries aren't the only places where strange rules guard terrifying truths. Sometimes, the most dangerous instructions come from your own home, in the first light of dawn. Imagine waking up in a house where, after a traumatic event, reality itself began to bend. To keep your home normal and prevent it from becoming something horrifying, you must follow a series of specific rules for your morning routine. Rule number 1, never check the clock before the kettle whistles. Time here has its own order. Subscribe to Midnight Rules and hit that notification bell for more bone-chilling tales of twisted rules that could save your life or cost you everything you hold dear. Next week, we face the mundane terror of the morning ritual, rules for maintaining balance.